Sometimes, the smallest mistake is the one that changes everything. The refrigerator hummed softly in the corner of Clara Whitmore's tiny kitchen, a low, uneven buzz that filled the silence like a reminder she couldn't turn off. She stood there barefoot on the cold tile, staring at the half-empty shelves as if something might magically appear if she waited long enough. It didn't. A single carton of eggs, one cracked, a bottle of ketchup, and a jug of milk so light when she picked it up, it felt like holding air. Behind her, from the narrow hallway that led to the bedroom, came the faint sound of coughing, small, fragile, and persistent. Her son. Each cough landed heavier than the last, pressing against her chest until it felt hard to breathe. Clara closed her eyes for a second, steadying herself, then reached for her phone on the counter. The screen was cracked across one corner, a spiderweb of thin white lines that caught the dim kitchen light. She unlocked it with a tired swipe and opened her messages. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling just slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion that had settled deep into her bones. She began to type slowly, carefully, as if each word mattered more than the last. Milk, bread, soup, crackers, baby Tylenol. She paused, swallowing hard, then added one more line. I'll pay you back on Friday. I promise. The words sat there, small and apologetic, but they were all she had left to offer. Clara exhaled and hit send before she could second-guess herself, before pride could get in the way again. The message whooshed away instantly, disappearing into the quiet night. She didn't notice the single digit she had mistyped, didn't notice that the number she sent it to wasn't her sister's. To her, it was just another moment of asking for help she didn't want to need. She set the phone down and leaned against the counter, pressing her palms flat against the cool surface. For a moment, she let herself feel it, the weight of everything. The overdue rent notice folded in her bag, the stack of unopened bills on the table, the way every decision lately felt like choosing which problem to survive today and which one to delay. Until tomorrow. Another cough echoed from the bedroom. Clara pushed herself upright immediately, instinct stronger than exhaustion, and walked down the narrow hallway. The small room was dim, lit only by a soft night light glowing warm amber in the corner. Her son lay curled under a thin blanket, cheeks flushed, his breathing uneven but steady. Clara knelt beside the bed and brushed a strand of damp hair from his forehead, her touch gentle, practiced. I'm here, she whispered, though he hadn't called for her. He shifted slightly, settling again, and she stayed there for a few seconds longer than necessary, just watching him, memorizing the quiet rise and fall of his chest like it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. When she finally stood, she felt the familiar ache in her back, the kind that came from too many long days and not enough rest. Back in the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed on, unchanged, indifferent. Clara picked up her phone again, glancing at the screen out of habit. No reply yet. She didn't expect one right away. Maybe her sister was asleep. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she wouldn't respond at all. Clara set the phone back down, this time more gently, as if not to disturb the fragile hope still clinging to it. She turned off the kitchen light, leaving only the faint glow from the street lamp outside filtering through the thin curtains. The apartment fell into a soft, dim quiet, broken only by the distant sound of cars passing and the steady hum of the fridge. Clara wrapped her arms around herself for warmth and stood there for a moment longer, alone in the stillness. She didn't know that across the city, miles away in a glass-walled office high above the streets, her message had already been delivered. She didn't know that someone else had just read every word she wrote. And she definitely didn't know that by morning, someone would be standing at her door with everything she had asked for and more. The phone vibrated once against the quiet glass surface of a conference table, subtle but out of place in a room designed for precision and control. Daniel Hayes did not look at it immediately. He was standing at the far end of the room, one hand resting lightly on the back of a leather chair, his attention fixed on the presentation projected across the wall. Numbers, forecasts, clean, predictable outcomes. Everything in his world was supposed to follow a structure. Everything except that small, unexpected vibration that came again, softer this time, almost patient. His gaze shifted, just briefly, long enough to notice the unfamiliar number glowing on the screen, long enough to see the message preview. He reached for the phone without thinking, unlocking it with a practiced motion, his thumb still as he read. Milk, bread, soup, crackers, baby Tylenol. I will pay you back on Friday. I promise. The room continued around him, voices discussing margins and timelines, but the words lost shape the moment they reached his ears. Something about the message did not fit. It was too raw, too direct, not the kind of message people sent by accident unless they were desperate enough not to double-check. Daniel frowned slightly, his thumb hovering over the screen. A wrong number. Obviously. It would have been easy to dismiss it. Delete. Move on. Return to the meeting where decisions worth millions were being made every minute. That was what he should have done. Instead, he read it again. Slower this time. Milk, bread, soup, crackers, baby Tylenol. Not luxury, not excess, just enough to get through a few days. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Across the table, someone asked him a question, something about acquisition timelines, but Daniel did not answer right away. He tapped out a short reply instead. You have the wrong number. He hit send and placed the phone back on the table, as if that settled it. As if the moment was already over. But it was not. The reply came less than a minute later. I am so sorry. Please ignore that. There was no follow-up. No explanation. Just that one line, polite and small, like the sender was already retreating from the mistake. Daniel stared at the message for a second longer than necessary. Something about the apology lingered. Not defensive, not embarrassed, just tired. He picked up the phone again, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He could leave it there. That would be the normal thing to do. Instead, he typed, Is your baby okay? The words surprised even him. He almost deleted them before sending, but did not. The message went through. He waited. Not consciously, not at first. He turned back to the meeting, nodded at a chart, asked a question of his own. But part of his attention stayed anchored to the phone, to that quiet thread that should not have mattered at all. When the reply finally came, it was short. We will manage. Thank you. Daniel exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. We will manage. It was the kind of sentence people used when they had no other option. He glanced around the room. Floor-to-ceiling glass. A skyline stretching for miles. Everything in reach. Everything controlled. And yet, somewhere in the same city, someone was counting dollars and hoping it would be enough for milk and medicine. The contrast settled heavily in his chest, unfamiliar and unwelcome. He picked up the phone again, this time without hesitation. What kind of formula does your baby need? His thumb paused just before sending, then pressed down. The message delivered instantly. Across the table, someone cleared their throat, trying to pull his attention back. Daniel did not look up right away. For the first time that day, the numbers on the screen felt distant. Irrelevant. Because somewhere beyond the glass walls, in a small apartment he had never seen, a message had been sent by mistake. And for reasons he could not explain, he was no longer willing to ignore it. Clara stared at the new message on her phone as if it had appeared from nowhere, her thumb hovering uncertainly above the screen while the faint glow illuminated the exhaustion in her eyes. What kind of formula does your baby need? The question felt too direct, too personal, coming from someone who had just told her she had the wrong number. For a moment, suspicion flickered through her mind, sharp and instinctive. She had heard stories before, about strangers online who pretended to help. People who asked questions that seemed harmless at first. Her grip tightened slightly around the phone. She should not answer. That was the safest choice. That was what she would have done. Any other day. But then, from down the hallway, her son coughed again, weaker this time, and the sound broke through her hesitation like a crack in glass. Clara closed her eyes briefly, exhaling through her nose as fatigue settled heavier on her shoulders. When she opened them again, she typed slowly, carefully choosing each word. It is just regular children's formula. The gentle kind. He has a sensitive stomach. She paused, then added another line before she could stop herself. Thank you, but I really did not mean to bother you. She hit send and immediately felt a wave of regret, as if she had revealed more than she intended. The phone remained silent for a few seconds that stretched longer than they should have. Clara set it down on the counter, trying to convince herself it did not matter, that the conversation would end there and everything would return to normal. But normal, lately, had been nothing more than getting through each hour. She turned back toward the sink, rinsing out an empty bottle with warm water, her movements slow and mechanical. Behind her, the phone buzzed again. Clara froze for a split second before turning around, her heartbeat quickening just enough to notice. She picked it up and read the message. "What is your address?" The words were simple. No explanation. No conditions. Just a question that felt heavier than anything that had come before it. Clara frowned, her mind racing now, caution pushing forward again. This was the part where something felt wrong. No one asked for an address without a reason. No one offered help without expecting something in return. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, uncertainty tightening in her chest. "I am sorry, I cannot share that," she typed, then stopped, staring at the sentence. It looked harsh, defensive, but maybe that was necessary. Maybe that was the only way to stay safe. Before she could send it, another message appeared, almost as if the stranger had anticipated her hesitation. "I understand. I just wanted to help. No pressure." The words were calm, respectful, no insistence, no push. Clara read the message twice, her shoulders lowering slightly without her realizing it. There was something different about the tone. It did not demand. It did not manipulate. It simply stepped back. She leaned against the counter again, the cool surface pressing through her thin shirt, grounding her in the quiet moment. Help. The word echoed in her mind, unfamiliar and distant, like something she had not allowed herself to expect in a long time. Her gaze drifted toward the hallway, toward the small room where her son lay sleeping, his breathing uneven but steady for now. Clara looked back at the phone, then down at her hands, noticing the faint tremble that had not fully gone away. Slowly, cautiously, she erased the unsent message. Her thumb moved again, this time more deliberate. She typed her address, just the street and apartment number. Nothing more. She stared at it for a second, her heart beating louder than the quiet apartment around her. Then she pressed send. The message disappeared instantly, leaving behind a silence that felt different from before. Not empty, not hopeless, just uncertain. Clara held the phone in her hand for a moment longer, as if waiting for something else to happen, but no new message came. The screen went dark. The apartment remained still. She placed the phone down gently this time, her movements slower, more thoughtful. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the exhaustion and the caution, something small had shifted. She did not know why she had trusted a stranger. She did not know what would come next. But for the first time in days, maybe longer, she allowed herself to believe that tomorrow might not look exactly like today. And miles away, standing alone in the quiet glow of a city that never really slept, Daniel Hayes stared at the address now saved on his phone, his expression unreadable as he reached for his car keys without a second thought. The city looked different at night, quieter but not asleep, as Daniel Hayes stepped out of the underground parking garage and into the bright, artificial light of a 24-hour grocery store that smelled faintly of coffee and fresh bread. He paused just inside the entrance, the automatic doors sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss, and for a moment, he simply stood there, adjusting to the unfamiliar setting. This was not a place he usually came to himself. Not at this hour, not alone, and certainly not without a schedule or an assistant already handling everything in advance. But tonight felt different in a way he could not fully explain, like he had stepped slightly outside the structure of his own life. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone, opening the message thread again, his eyes scanning the short list Clara had sent as if committing it to memory. Milk, bread, soup, crackers, baby Tylenol. Simple items. Basic needs. He moved slowly through the aisles, his steps measured but unhurried, the polished floor reflecting the overhead fluorescent lights in long, clean lines. A shopping cart stood near the entrance, but he ignored it at first, carrying the items one by one as he found them, as if the act of holding each thing mattered more than convenience. The milk section was nearly empty, rows of cartons lined up in quiet order, each one identical until you looked closely. Daniel stood there longer than necessary, reading labels, comparing types, remembering her words. The gentle kind, sensitive stomach. He selected one carefully, then hesitated before reaching for a second carton, placing both in his hands with deliberate care. In the next aisle, he found the crackers, then the soup, choosing options that were easy, practical, something that could be prepared quickly without effort. He paused again when he reached the medicine section, his gaze moving across shelves filled with brightly colored boxes, each promising relief in different ways. Baby Tylenol. The words echoed in his mind. He picked up one bottle, then another, comparing them, making sure it was the right one, the safest option, the one a parent would choose without hesitation if given the chance. Around him, a few late-night shoppers moved quietly, their carts rolling softly, their conversations low and distant. No one recognized him. No one paid him any attention at all. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt completely unobserved, not as a CEO, not as a figure in headlines, but simply as a man standing in a grocery store holding a list that did not belong to him. He finally grabbed a card, placing everything inside, then added more without checking the message again. Fresh fruit, a loaf of bread that still felt warm through the paper bag, a small pack of juice boxes, things that were not asked for but felt necessary anyway. His movements grew more certain with each item, less like he was completing a task and more like he was responding to something instinctive, something that had been quiet for too long. When he reached the checkout, the cashier barely glanced up, scanning each item with practiced efficiency, the steady beep of the register filling the space between them. Daniel paid without hesitation, sliding his card across the reader, the total irrelevant in a way that felt almost uncomfortable now. The bags were heavier than he expected when he lifted them, the weight shifting slightly in his hands as he walked back toward the exit. Outside, the air was cooler, carrying a faint breeze that cut through the stillness of the early morning hours. Daniel placed the bags carefully in the back seat of his car, adjusting them so nothing would tip over, his movements precise, almost protective. He closed the door gently, then paused for a second, his hand resting against the frame as he looked out across the empty parking lot. This was not something he had planned, not something that fit into any version of his usual routine. And yet, it felt more real than most of the decisions he made every day. He walked around to the driver's side, got in, and started the engine, the quiet hum filling the enclosed space. The address was already set in his navigation, glowing softly on the screen. A place he had never been, in a part of the city he rarely thought about. As he pulled out of the parking lot and onto the empty road, the streetlights stretched ahead of him in long, uninterrupted lines, guiding him forward into something unknown. Not a meeting, not a negotiation, just a door he was about to knock on, carrying everything someone had asked for by mistake, and more than he could explain even to himself. The sky was just beginning to shift from deep blue to a pale, uncertain gray when Daniel's car turned onto Clara's Street, the headlights cutting softly across a row of aging apartment buildings that looked worn but lived in, each window telling a quiet story of someone trying to get through another day. He slowed as he approached the address on his screen, his eyes scanning the numbers on the doors, the chipped paint, the narrow walkway lined with overgrown grass. This was not a place he had ever been before, not even close. His world usually existed in glass towers and polished floors, places where everything was designed to look flawless. Here, nothing was pretending. He parked along the curb, the engine humming softly for a moment before he turned it off, and the sudden silence felt louder than expected. For a second, he just sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, looking at the building in front of him as if confirming it was real. Then he reached into the back seat, gathering the bags carefully, adjusting their weight so nothing shifted too much. The plastic rustled quietly in the still morning air as he stepped out of the car, the cool breeze brushing against his face, sharper now that he was fully awake. The walkway creaked faintly under his steps as he approached the entrance, each footfall deliberate, each movement grounded in a decision he had already made but still felt new. He found the apartment number quickly, the small metal digits slightly crooked against the doorframe, and stopped just short of knocking. For a brief moment, hesitation flickered through him, not doubt, but awareness. This was the part that could not be undone. Not a transaction, not a controlled outcome, just a simple act that carried no expectation except whatever the other person might feel when the door opened. He lifted his hand and knocked gently, the sound soft but clear in the quiet hallway. Inside, there was movement, faint at first, then closer. Daniel straightened slightly, adjusting his grip on the bags, his expression calm but focused. The door opened just a few inches at first, the chain still latched, revealing a pair of tired eyes framed by loose strands of hair. Clara. She looked exactly like her message had sounded. Worn, guarded, but holding something. Steady underneath. Her gaze moved from his face to the bags in his hands, confusion settling in before anything else. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice cautious but polite, the kind of tone someone uses when they are not sure whether to trust what they are seeing. Daniel did not step forward. He did not rush to explain. He simply held her gaze for a second, then spoke quietly. "You sent me a message last night." Clara blinked, her expression tightening slightly as she searched her memory. Then something shifted in her eyes, recognition breaking through the confusion. "The wrong number," she said softly, almost to herself. Daniel nodded once. "I brought what you asked for." He lifted the bags just enough for her to see, not pushing them forward, just letting the truth of his words settle on its own. Clara stared at him for a moment longer, her mind catching up with what her eyes were seeing, the pieces not quite fitting together. No uniform, no delivery logo, no explanation that made sense. Just a stranger standing at her door at sunrise, holding everything she had needed. Her hand moved slowly, unhooking the chain, the small metallic click louder than it should have been. She opened the door fully this time, stepping back just slightly, not in fear, but in disbelief. Daniel remained where he was, not crossing the threshold, respecting the invisible line between them. "I cannot accept this," Clara said after a second, her voice steadier now, but still carrying the weight of someone who had learned not to take things freely. Daniel's expression did not change, but something softened in his eyes. "You are not accepting anything," he replied gently. "You already asked for it." The words landed differently than she expected, not as pressure, but as a quiet reminder of a moment she had almost tried to forget. Clara looked down at the bags again, her fingers curling slightly at her sides, the conflict clear but quiet. Behind her, from the small room down the hallway, came another soft cough. Both of them heard it. Neither of them ignored it. Daniel shifted his grip slightly and stepped forward just enough to place the bags carefully by the door, still not entering, still not assuming anything beyond what was needed. Then he straightened, meeting her eyes once more. "There is enough for a few days," he said simply. "And the medicine is on top." Clara did not move immediately. She just stood there, caught between instinct and reality, watching a stranger do something that did not ask for anything in return. Daniel gave a small nod, as if that was all that needed to be said, then turned to leave, his steps quiet as he walked back down the narrow path. Clara remained in the doorway, her eyes following him, her mind still trying to understand how a single mistake had led to this moment. And as he reached his car and placed his hand on the door, he paused just briefly, glancing back once, not to check on her, but to make sure she was not alone in a way that mattered. Then he got in, closed the door softly, and drove away, leaving behind more than just a few bags of groceries, leaving behind a moment that neither of them would forget. The door remained open long after the sound of Daniel's car faded into the distance, the quiet morning air slipping into the apartment as Clara stood frozen in place, her hand still resting lightly against the edge of the doorframe, as if she needed something solid to hold on to. For a moment, nothing moved. Not her, not the world around her, just the faint rustle of plastic bags at her feet and the distant hum of the waking city beyond the thin walls. Then her son coughed again, softer this time, but enough to break the stillness, pulling her back into the moment. Clara blinked, the weight of reality settling in, and slowly bent down, her fingers brushing against the handles of the grocery bags. They were heavier than she expected, solid, real, not something imagined out of exhaustion. She lifted them carefully and stepped back inside, nudging the door closed with her foot until it clicked shut behind her. The apartment felt different now, not brighter, not larger, but changed in a way she could not quite name. She set the bags on the small kitchen counter and stood there for a second, staring at them like they might disappear if she looked away too quickly. Then, slowly, she reached inside. The first bag. Milk. Not just one carton, but two. Fresh, cold, the kind she had stood in front of days ago and put back on the shelf because she could not afford it. Her fingers lingered on it for a moment before she placed it gently on the counter. Bread came next, still soft, followed by soup cans, crackers, and then more. Apples, bananas, juice boxes, items she had not asked for, but somehow needed just as much. Clara swallowed hard, her throat tightening as she unpacked each item, her movements slowing as the realization settled deeper with every second. This was not a quick gesture. This was thought, care, intention. She reached into the final bag and found the small bottle of medicine placed right on top, exactly where he said it would be. Baby Tylenol. She held it in her hand, her grip tightening slightly as a wave of emotion rose unexpectedly, catching her off guard. For days, she had been calculating every dollar, stretching every option, telling herself she could manage just a little longer. And now, without warning, without condition, someone had removed that weight, even if only for a short time. Clara exhaled slowly, pressing her lips together as she set the medicine aside and turned toward the hallway. She moved quickly now, her steps lighter, more certain, as she entered the small bedroom where her son lay curled under his blanket. The soft glow of the nightlight still filled the room, casting warm shadows across his face. She knelt beside him, her hand gently touching his forehead, checking his temperature with a care that had become second nature. Still warm, but not worse. Not yet. She prepared the medicine with steady hands, measuring it carefully, then helped him take it, her voice soft, reassuring, even though he barely stirred. When she finished, she stayed there for a moment longer, watching him settle again, his breathing easing just slightly. Clara brushed her fingers through his hair, her touch lingering, her eyes tracing every small detail, as if grounding herself in something certain. Then she stood and returned to the kitchen, her gaze drifting once more to the counter now filled with food. It looked almost unfamiliar, like a version of her life she had not seen in a long time. She walked over slowly, her fingers grazing the edge of the counter as she leaned against it, her shoulders lowering just a fraction, the tension she had carried for days easing in a way she had not allowed herself to expect. Her eyes moved to the door, as if she might still see him standing there, but it remained closed, quiet, ordinary again. Clara reached for her phone without thinking, unlocking it, and opening the message thread. The last message still sat there, simple and unchanged. No follow-up, no demand, no explanation, just silence. Her thumb hovered over the screen, uncertainty returning but softer now, less guarded, more thoughtful. Thank you, she typed finally, the words feeling small compared to what had just happened, but still necessary. She hesitated for a second, then added another line. I do not know why you did this, but it means more than you think. She read the message once, then pressed send before she could overthink it. The screen dimmed again, and Clara set the phone down, her gaze drifting back to the counter, to the food, to the quiet proof that sometimes help arrived without warning, without reason, and without asking for anything in return. And somewhere across the city, as morning light began to stretch across glass and steel, Daniel Hayes sat alone in his car for a moment longer than necessary after arriving home, his hands resting loosely on the steering wheel, the silence around him no longer empty, but filled with something he had not felt in a long time. Something simple, something human, something that could not be measured in numbers or controlled by decisions. Something that started with a single message sent by mistake, and had not ended yet. Daniel's phone lit up just as he stepped into his apartment, the soft glow cutting through the quiet stillness of a space that had always felt more functional than lived in. He loosened his tie absent-mindedly, setting his keys down on the marble counter, his movements automatic until his eyes caught the notification. He paused. For a moment, he did not reach for it. Not because he was busy, but because something about it felt different. Then he picked it up. Thank you. I do not know why you did this, but it means more than you think. He read the message once. Then again, slower this time, as if the meaning might deepen with each pass. The words were simple, but they carried something weightless and heavy at the same time. Gratitude, yes, but also disbelief. Daniel exhaled quietly, leaning back against the counter, his gaze drifting toward the floor-to-ceiling windows where the city stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Morning had fully arrived now, the light soft but persistent, touching everything without asking. He typed a response, his thumb moving without hesitation this time. You do not have to thank me. He paused, then added another line. Just take care of him. He hit send and lowered the phone, the silence returning almost immediately, but it did not feel empty anymore. It felt settled. Meanwhile, in the small apartment across the city, Clara stared at her screen as the reply appeared, her breath catching slightly at the words. Just take care of him. There was no signature. No explanation. Just that one quiet instruction, as if it was the only thing that mattered. Clara read it twice, then slowly locked her phone, her fingers lingering on the edges as if holding on to the moment just a little longer. She set it down on the table beside the groceries, her eyes drifting again to the kitchen counter that now held more than it had in weeks. For the first time in a long while, she moved through her space without that constant pressure pressing at the back of her mind. She poured a glass of milk, the simple act feeling almost unfamiliar, then prepared a small breakfast with careful hands, her movements steady but softer, less rushed. The apartment still looked the same. The walls still carried the same worn edges. The furniture still showed its age. But something had shifted beneath it all, something she could not see but could feel in the way her shoulders no longer felt as heavy. Later that morning, sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, casting quiet patterns across the floor as Clara sat beside her son, watching him sleep more peacefully than he had the night before. The medicine had helped. His breathing was easier now, not perfect, but better. She brushed her fingers lightly across his cheek, her expression calm but thoughtful, her mind replaying the events of the morning again and again, trying to understand something that did not follow any logic she knew. A stranger, a wrong number, and yet he had shown up, not with money sent through a screen, not with instructions or conditions. He had come himself. That part stayed with her the most. The choice, the effort, the intention behind it. Across the city, Daniel stood in his office once again, the familiar environment surrounding him as if nothing had changed. Assistants moved efficiently. Screens displayed numbers and projections. Conversations resumed with the same urgency as always. From the outside, everything was exactly as it had been the day before. But Daniel found himself pausing more than usual, his attention drifting at unexpected moments. A report sat open in front of him, but his focus was not fully there. Instead, his mind returned to a small apartment, a quiet hallway, a woman standing in the doorway with disbelief in her eyes. He had made countless decisions in his life, most of them calculated, strategic, necessary. But this one had been different. It had not been about gain. It had not been about outcome. It had simply been about responding. And now, for reasons he could not fully explain, it did not feel finished. His phone remained on the desk beside him, silent for now, but not forgotten. Not dismissed. Because somewhere in the city, a connection existed that had not been planned, not been designed, but had happened anyway. And Daniel Hayes, a man who controlled almost every part of his world, found himself waiting, not for a deal to close, not for numbers to align, but for something far less predictable. Something human. Something that had started with a mistake, but was quietly becoming something more. The afternoon light stretched thin across the apartment floor as Clara sat at the small kitchen table, her fingers wrapped loosely around a warm mug she had not taken a sip from in several minutes, her eyes drifting between the quiet room and the phone resting beside her. The silence felt different now, not heavy, not pressing, but filled with something she was still trying to understand. Her son slept in the other room, his breathing steady, the faint sound reaching her like a quiet reassurance that, for now, everything was under control. Clara glanced at the groceries again, still neatly arranged on the counter as if she had not fully allowed herself to believe they belonged there. Each item carried a quiet reminder of the morning, of the man who had stood at her door without hesitation, without explanation. She reached for her phone slowly, unlocking it and opening the message thread once more, her thumb hovering as she considered what to say next. Thank you did not feel like enough. Nothing did. But silence did not feel right either. After a moment, she began to type. He is doing better. The medicine helped. She paused, then added, I hope I did not cause you any trouble. She read it once, then pressed send before doubt could settle in again. The message disappeared, and Clara set the phone down, exhaling softly as if she had just crossed another invisible line. Across the city, Daniel's phone vibrated against the polished surface of his desk, the subtle sound barely noticeable among the steady rhythm of the office. He looked at it immediately this time, his attention shifting without delay. He is doing better. The medicine helped. I hope I did not cause you any trouble. Daniel's expression softened slightly, his shoulders easing in a way that no business outcome had managed to accomplish that day. He leaned back in his chair, reading the message again, not because he needed to, but because he wanted to hold on to the meaning behind it just a little longer. Doing better. The words carried more weight than they should have, grounding him in something real beyond contracts and negotiations. He typed his response carefully, the simplicity of it intentional. I am glad he is feeling better. You did not cause any trouble. He hesitated for a brief second, then added another line. If you need anything else, you can tell me. He sent it before overthinking could intervene, placing the phone back on the desk as he let the moment settle. Back in the apartment, Clara's phone lit up again, the soft glow catching her attention immediately. She picked it up, her eyes moving quickly across the message, then slowing as she reached the last line. If you need anything else, you can tell me. Clara's grip tightened slightly around the phone, not out of fear, but uncertainty. The offer was simple, but it opened a door she was not used to walking through. Asking once had already felt like too much. Asking again felt impossible. She set the phone down gently, her gaze drifting toward the window where sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, painting soft patterns across the worn floor. For a moment, she said nothing, did nothing, just sat there with the quiet understanding that something had changed, even if she could not fully explain how. Time passed slowly, the kind of quiet afternoon that usually stretched endlessly, but today felt shorter, lighter. Eventually, Clara stood and moved through the apartment with a calm she had not felt in weeks, preparing another small meal, checking on her son, letting the hours unfold without the constant pressure that had defined her days before. And yet, beneath that calm, a question lingered. Not about what had happened, but about why. Why would someone like him, a stranger, go so far without asking for anything in return? Across the city, Daniel found himself thinking the same thing, though from the opposite side of the question. Why had he done it? Why had it mattered enough to leave everything behind for a night and show up at a door he had never seen before? He stood by the window of his office, looking out at the city that seemed smaller now, more connected than it had the day before. Somewhere out there was a small apartment, a quiet kitchen, a woman who had sent a message by mistake. And somehow, that mistake had found its way into his life in a way that no plan ever could. His phone remained within reach, silent again, but not forgotten. Because now, there was something between them that did not need explanation to exist. Not a transaction, not an obligation, just a quiet understanding that sometimes, the most unexpected moments are the ones that stay, the ones that shift something deeper than circumstance. And neither of them knew yet where it would lead, only that it had not ended. The evening settled gently over the city, the light fading into a soft amber glow that filtered through Clara's window, casting long shadows across the quiet apartment as she stood by the kitchen counter, her hands resting lightly against its edge, her eyes fixed on the phone that had remained silent for the past few hours. It was strange how something so small could now hold so much weight. A message thread that had started by mistake now felt like a fragile bridge between two lives that were never meant to intersect. She picked it up slowly, unlocking the screen, reading the last message again. If you need anything else, you can tell me. The words lingered in her mind, not as an obligation, but as an invitation she was not sure she knew how to accept. Clara exhaled quietly, her gaze drifting toward the hallway where her son now sat up in bed, awake for the first time that day, without discomfort clouding his expression. He looked better. Not completely well, but stronger. That alone felt like something close to relief. She walked over to him, kneeling beside the bed, her hand brushing gently against his shoulder as he looked up at her with a faint, tired smile. "Can I have some juice?" he asked softly, his voice still a little weak but hopeful. Clara smiled back, a real one this time, and nodded. Of course. She stood and returned to the kitchen, opening one of the small juice boxes that had been placed in the bag that morning, her movements slower now, more present, as if she was finally allowing herself to feel each moment instead of just getting through it. She handed it to him, watching as he took a careful sip, then another, his small hands steady around it. Clara sat beside him for a while, saying nothing, just being there, letting the quiet comfort of the moment settle around them. Later, after he had fallen asleep again, the apartment grew still once more, the kind of silence that no longer felt heavy but calm. Clara returned to the kitchen, her eyes once again drawn to the phone. This time, she did not hesitate as long. She picked it up and began to type. "You already did more than enough. I cannot ask for anything else. She paused, then added, but I hope you know you made a difference today. She read it once, her chest tightening slightly, then pressed send. The message disappeared, leaving behind a quiet certainty that felt new but steady. Across the city, Daniel stood alone in his office, the lights dimmed now, most of the building already empty as the day came to an end. The skyline stretched beyond him, glowing with thousands of lights, each one representing a life moving forward in its own direction. His phone vibrated softly on the desk, pulling his attention immediately. He picked it up, reading her message slowly, his expression shifting in a way that no one else would have noticed. You made a difference today. The words stayed with him, echoing in a space that had long been filled with different measures of success. Revenue, growth, influence. But this felt different. Simpler, clearer. He set the phone down for a moment, walking toward the window, his reflection faintly visible against the glass as he looked out at the city below. For years, he had built a life defined by control, by decisions that shaped outcomes on a scale most people never saw. And yet, none of it had ever felt quite like this. Not immediate, not human. He picked up the phone again, his reply forming without effort. Sometimes, one day is enough to change something. He hesitated for a brief second, then added one more line. I am glad I answered the wrong message. He sent it, then lowered the phone, letting the silence return once more. Back in the apartment, Clara read his response, her lips parting slightly as a quiet breath escaped her. Sometimes, one day is enough. She looked around her small kitchen, at the food on the counter, at the calm that had replaced the pressure, at the quiet room where her son slept more peacefully than he had in days. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She did not know if this connection would continue or fade back into nothing more than a strange, unexpected moment. But she knew one thing with certainty. Today had been different. And as she set her phone down and turned off the light, letting the apartment fall into a soft, peaceful darkness, the silence no longer felt empty. It felt full, not of answers, but of something quieter, something lasting. Because somewhere between a mistake and a choice, two lives had crossed in a way neither of them had planned. And even if nothing more came from it, that moment, that single day, had already changed something neither of them would forget.